Good evening and welcome to this third day in the 2025 Rohatsu Sesshin at Sokokuji Buddhist Monastery, Order of Immediate Light. So the first day that is closer to a traditional Sesshin is today. We just spent 2 days in 2 block sits each day, morning 4 hours, afternoon 4 hours, both Monday and Tuesday. And today, this morning and this afternoon, we worked on brush and ink awareness practice. So I want to use a little bit of some of the ideas from that approach to awareness practice. The next 3 days, we'll also be doing awareness practices of different sorts. Tomorrow is the Sadhana Mahamudra, and the next day is opening the eye mind using visual awareness. No, which one is it?
Friday is some Tai Chi and principles in that.
What's Saturday?
That's the opening the eye mind.
So I want those changed.
Yeah.
So thank you. Why is that funny?
I've communicated with one person. It'll be third time. Was Wednesday, now it's
I want
Saturday.
the last day to be the practice of the awareness practice of the 4 days. I want the last one. I thought I made that clear, and I probably did not. Probably.
OTEM. You want the
No,
last one to be OTEM?
no. You guys are all gonna get old someday, and you'll have this same problem, thinking you remembered something you forgot. You have it correct. Thank you. Does anybody want to correct me or remind me of anything else while we're here? No, I did get it mixed up. I wanted the very last day to be the practice that you and Yu Dao will work on together, which will be the Ikebana. Is that going to happen? And then also Tai Chi. Okay, thank you. What day will that happen? Saturday?
Certainly. If you want the last day, Saturday would be the last day.
Okay, thank you. It's good you all have a sense of humor about this. So yes, Friday will be opening the eye mind. Is that right?
Certainly.
So I'm glad you can imagine if you're confused, how confused they are here. So we're also doing oryoki, or traditional Japanese Sokuzan, eating meals together in a very ritualized form, structured form. So we've been doing that each evening, at least starting with tonight, and I think we're going to do it 3 more times. Okay. Glad I've been here to explain this all to you. So the title that I've given to this evening's talk has to do with the practices we've done today. You have to excuse me, I'm pretty winded, and so I may not speak so clearly. And the title, what was the title I came up with?
Grasping results.
So we grasp in our life, we grasp at results. Most of the world is doing this. We do this, we plan this, we decide on this, we strategize this, and we want a result. When we don't get one, we realize that we've just been grasping at that and it slips through our fingers, or whatever image you want to use. Can't quite get it. And so this practice, as most practices as I understand them in the Buddhist tradition, are about observing the grasping, not stopping it or controlling it, observing the grasping or the passion, and observing the aggression or the shutting down, pushing away, and violence sometimes. And also being aware of when we shut down, turn away, distract ourselves into something else, avoidance, and so on. So this, I'm going to use an example that is along the lines of what the brush and ink awareness practice is that I learned from my first teacher, the Dorje Dradla Mukpo Chogyam Trungpa Rinpoche. He taught something called um, the letter of the Black Ashe, which is a particular symbolic form that has to do with the Shambhala lineages. I'm not going to go into that here. And it was just generally called stroke practice. So you just make a stroke with a brush. And it was a particular highly stylized, and you could even say somewhat controlled, at least the way I learned it was controlled. But the way I teach this is what is emphasized is not control, but awareness, a little bit of control, a little bit of following and aligning yourself with a form, but not obeying. There's a big difference between obeying and observing. Most of the world doesn't do this at all. Most of the world is obeying something or disobeying something or ignoring it. Again, what is that? Three poisons in another set of words. If you observe that, if you're aware of that through the sitting practice of meditation and other forms of awareness practice, you will eventually be able to see how really, really destructive and confusing and adding to the confusion of yourself and the world that is by trying to control, grasp, and shut down on something that is, here it comes, unreal. This is an illusion. But the powerful thing about the illusion is it seems so real, especially if we lose control or if we get control. We have power and we can control others and through fear and so on. So I want to bring it back to a very simple approach, an awareness approach. So I'm going to do an Enso practice, which comes out of the Japanese tradition and also, of course, Tibetan tradition of calligraphy. But the Japanese form of Enso, you're just making a circle. I think it says that Takahashi, who has a very famous calligrapher, who does quite famous stylized forms of Enso or circle. Help me pull this forward this way. I don't know. You can see that? Yeah, you can see. So this is done by ritual form or having forms that are laid out. You take the lid off the jar and you look at the lid and you follow along in a very stylized way. But it's not to be obeyed. So if you were to sit down and do this, say if I were to teach this for a while and then people would come in and take turns doing this, which they have, and someone were to forget to put the lid on the jar, they would not be corrected. That would be their awareness practice. So we have respect for what people are doing. This is so important. We so often want to control, starting with our 5-year-old, instead of allowing them to stumble into things and bump around a little bit. Instead, we want to control them. No, you do it this way. You don't do it that way. Don't put your elbows on the table. Those kinds of things. Are those incorrect? No, you may have to do that. You may feel almost a compulsion to control your child, let alone your own mind, which of course you can't do. You can't control your mind. If you want an example of that and you feel bad, just try to stop it. If you feel negative or angry, try to control that. You can. And of course, we leave the failure at controlling for a judgment about ourselves. It's the other negativity. The first negativity is we can't do it. The next negativity is we think we're bad or we're wrong or we're incompetent or anything else. Probably it was conditioning was probably started out by our society, our culture, our high school, or perhaps even our parents. So I'll just go through this and I will talk about it a little bit as I do it. This is a practice that all of you can do. You some paper, brush and ink in a container. It can be a fruit jar. It doesn't have to be this. This was made by a student of mine well, he was in Germany and now he's living in Greece. Pignard, beautiful jar. I don't know where he made some brush holders too, but I'm not sure where those are at. Maybe they broke. So I will go through this without talking. Of course, there's no guarantee. Since I like to talk, I might start talking right away. So we start out by traditional gasho, bowing like this. And then we do this bow. And that starts this form. So the first one is just the community of the Sangha. And the next one is this bow that Trungpa Rinpoche called the warrior's bow. I don't particularly care for that word. I'm not against it. I think the warrior idea is okay. It's just too much use of that kind of word and easy to misunderstand what a warrior is. Different interpretations of that. I prefer the farmer's bow. Well, let's do that again. What is a farmer's bow? Bowing to the field, bowing to the open space in which things will grow. So the idea here is to observe what you're doing, but at the same time, because you have a form, you start out by observing the form. Where's the brush? Where's the ink pot? Where's the paper? And you're just observing your uh, and you could say controlling what you're doing to some extent because there's a form to be observed and aligned with, not obeyed. Because as you do this, you'll notice there's no way you can do it the same way the person who instructed you, or the last person who did it, or the last 10 times you did it. It's always have some different kind of situation happening there. And that's where your awareness practice is important, is to see you're training yourself in this, like you're training yourself when you're practicing shikantaza. You're training yourself to be aware of what's happening in the movement, whether it's the movement of the mind, thoughts, emotions, memories, conclusions, judgments, coming and going. Do not interfere with any of it. Don't interfere. Observe it. You don't need control of anything. You can't really get control of anything. But the ego mind, the self-centered mind, thinks that, well, if I just push, if I just do this or that or this or that, I can somehow have a say-so about it. Maybe you might get some say-so. But if you're on a spiritual path, you probably will see more clearly that that's just materialism. It's just trying to get control. The whole world is doing this. And there's some successes and some failures. Most of it is just successes and failures. In other words, war and peace, peace and war and peace. It rotates. It is circular. But if you're on the circle, all you see is a straight line of me and my stuff and what I want to do, what I don't want to do. And you don't have the big picture that someone who practices has a strong awareness practice begins to have, you begin to see this is much bigger than our limited little myopic view of it. We actually see this is an amazingly spacious and open dynamic. This is called, in the tradition, called Maha, means great. Vipassana means panoramic awareness. Maha Vipassana. This won't come out of just trying to be more aware. It comes out of watching what moves without pushing it, aggression, without pulling on it or determining what it is or analyzing it, passion, or turning away, distracting yourself from it, ignorance. And what happens over time, it's not even occurrence. It's like less of an occurrence. It's less of participation in the illusion, the mystique of reality that looks so real and convincing that will cause us to hurt people we love and hurt ourselves, hurt the world based on fear that we think is just the truth. Well, it's true. We have a story to back up. If you're operating out of fear, it's just too embarrassing to operate out of fear or pride or protecting the ego. So instead, we come up with a story about it. And then we get 5 people who all agree with this, or maybe they have their version of it. And therefore, we're able to proceed into craziness, insanity of a sort by having it's not actually we wouldn't call it a cult, but it's a cultish behavior of believing what other people think. Not a good idea. I don't know of any other way to work with this other than being aware. You can't fight with it because it just fights back. Or it turns around and accuses you of being defensive. So being aware of the space when this is going around, I'm watching it. When I make a turn here and I curve up here, I notice that I'm concerned about turning in too fast. I notice as I come around this way that I'm not sure whether I'm going to join it to the bottom or go above it. And I go above it. Why? I want it to look better. Does it look better? Not really. But you have to be aware of that. You do not have to do this correctly. This is why when we finish making an ENSO or brushing awareness practice exercise, then instead of keeping it or hanging it on the wall and framing it or signing it or putting chop marks all over it, it's an awareness practice. What you're doing here is the same thing you do when you get off the cushion from practicing Shikantaza. You fold it up and you set it aside. Do not accumulate anything unless you do. And then then it's an awareness that you're accumulating concepts, ideas, conclusions, judgments, and successes or failures. Not two different things. So it is about being aware. I cannot emphasize that enough. If you are really aware of what this is, you won't do much. You won't say much. You won't interpret much, translate much. You'll just receive this astonishing world. You'll be astonished by it. What will be astonished? Nothing will be astonished. It's ordinary. Astonishment only happens to a self, a person. The astonishing situation happens in consciousness, and it is astonishing, but there's no grasping at the astonishment as a success. It's just Trungpa Rinpoche's word for that was sacred world. His other word for that was ordinary magic. The Tibetan for that is Tamogishepa, ordinary mind, just this, ordinary. Not because it isn't incredibly amazing, it's just that it's ordinary. It's just what this amazing world is. That's available to you. It's right at your edge of your ear. It's right at the lid of your eye. It's right at your doorstep. But if you turn away out of fear and run away, go away, join, collect ideas and opinions and judgments, pack snowballs and throw it at the neighbors. Not wrong. It's just you're just participating in the illusion and probably not a judgment of you particularly, probably just creating that illusion of otherness, the circularity of the ego, which is called, of course, in Sanskrit, samsara. the cycle of life and death, the cycle of the illusion, showing up, going away, showing up, going away. What is true does not show up, does not show up as an item or as a thing, or even as an experience. It can't show up because it's never appeared. And why hasn't it appeared? Because it never disappeared. It's always this. It's always been right in front of you. So I would say don't cover up. If you have questions, I'd be happy to respond.
Conundrum about you said just now that the world is sacred, or you're quoting Rinpoche, that the world is sacred, but it's also an illusion. How can it be an illusion and sacred at the same time?
That's the only way you can do that. It's an illusion. It's sacred.
I'm reminded of the first reminder, precious human birth,
Yes,
and yet that's an illusion that there's birth.
yes. But if it's an illusion, then you know that it's not real. But if you're caught in the illusion, if you're involved in the illusion, if your hand movement is part of the illusion, then all you have to do is see that it's unreal. You can't really get out of it. You don't have to run out the door. It's a mouse. Wait a minute. No, it's not a mouse. It's what's that?
Snake.
It's a snake. No, it's a black ink on paper.
A lady with a funny hat.
Cowboy. Nice irises. Further question?
Milk bowing, what directs what's being put on paper in this practice bowing?
Well, the first direction is the brush, the ink, position, an offering, a gesture, respect to everything, that there is such a thing as this. And it's kind of a container for it. And then you go ahead and get the ink, and so it's all the forms are doing that. They're all talking to each other. You don't get in the way, including your arm movement, your body. And I didn't know what I was going to do. I might have done a circle. I might have done showing something else. No plan.
Milka Bowing, as a student, what gets in the way of practice in this form? Like,
As long as you do it, nothing gets in the way. But if you don't do it, that got in the way. Not to do it, not to do sitting practice of meditation. That's the biggest obstruction. That's why lately I've been teaching people to just get to the cushion, sit down, hold still, watch for a minute, strike the bell, get back up and go do something else. That way you're reinforcing, you're encouraging your you're conditioning yourself to sit down rather than sit down and be mindful, or sit down and be aware, and sit down and be. Just sit down, hold still, watch what moves for 1 minute, get up. Then there will come a time when you'll sit for a couple of hours, maybe or more. But training your intention to get to that cushion seems to be important.
Milka Bowing, on the cushion, while in this practice, the forms are more obvious. We have a brush, we have paper, ink. When we're on the cushion, what are the forms?
Your mind. Sit still. Watch the watch the calligraphy of the mind. Watch things that are developed and go this way and go that. And then you start to think about, daydream about something, and then it comes back to how your body feels. And then you may go off in another so-called tangent of thinking, evaluating, judging, creating stories about. And then you may notice that and just be aware of your body and how your body feels. Maybe your knee will ache a little bit. Maybe there'll be a sound in the other room. Maybe if you're in a Zendo, maybe somebody next to you will make some gesture or movement or get up off their cushion, bring you back to, so to speak, bring you back to you're just on your cushion. There's nothing happening. Yet the very idea that there's nothing happening is the blank page. Sitting down is a blank page. And then your mind does this and you observe it. This is an opportunity to deliberately go in and create this. But the deliberation and the intention could produce many, many things. If you actually sit down and decide to make a circle, then that gives you a really strong form. But then you can see how that circle's never the same. Is that where you were looking for?
Milka Bowing, when you talked about the circle and how you were at the end, you were looking at whether to connect it or go above it.
Mhm.
When we're on the cushion, are there things like that happen that steer us in a particular direction that we should look at?
I think it's true. Going to be different for everyone, depending on what's happening in your life, what happened 20 minutes ago, what happened when you were born, what happened in the 13th century. All of that has the potential. It's a big, strong word, has a potential of showing up, but the causes and conditions which are innumerable, that are behind that. That's why it's often said everything is without cause. That's because you can't find a first cause. But there's causation, but it's such incredible labyrinth that if you try to pick and choose anything, you trap yourself in the illusion, and your life becomes part of that illusion. You actually miss your life because what was trying to show up, whatever brought you into this realm, is karma. And that karma needs to be lived. That doesn't mean that you were a murderer or something, and that karma of killing people or something is coming out and you need to kill people. Maybe it does. There are people who are doing that. If you look around, you'll see people that they didn't just decide to be Nazis. They were born that way. But they're not condemned to it. It's just that their karma is taking them in a trajectory that it creates those very, very difficult situations. But if they could run into the Dharma, which just means stop agreeing, stop disagreeing, and stop avoiding. More?
Milk bowing, if we run into what looks like an individual that's heading down some path we think is not, it's murder or something that's very harmful. Is there anything we can do when we talk to
Well,
them?
yeah, so it's situational, so it would be so complicated. I mean, so when you state that, I mean, generically, that's a statement, but how that's going to show up. What is your relationship to them? How old are they? How long have you known them? Are they any receptive to you at all? Are you friends? Are they been talking to you about murder? I mean, that's a pretty strong example, but it could be something like one time I had one of my students talk about joining the Peace Corps. I think you were in the Peace Corps, weren't you?
Yes.
And I suggested that he not do that. I said at the time, I don't remember my exact words, was I don't think that's a good idea. That's usually the way I speak negatively about anything. I don't think that's a good idea, but I can't stop you from doing that. If you feel like you have to do that, I'm not going to get in the way of what you feel is you need to do it. Your karma would be my way of saying it. You need to do it, then maybe you do. But the way it looks to me, not a good idea to go there. Peace Corps, I'm sure you found when you were in the Marshall Islands, it was much different than what it looked like before you went in.
Yes.
Yes. Not, maybe not worse, but just very much different. So a lot of difference between the Peace Corps and murder. But still, it has a similar kind of dynamic that you would try to ask the person, get to know if you really were concerned about what they were going to do. As I mentioned really earlier, a person that was in a similar situation that I would love to have helped, but he was stuck in a terrible situation in that area. I'm not going to go into it here, but it was terrible. And the only thing I could offer him is I say, stay in touch with me as much as it feels like to talk to me helps you. You have my confidence. I will talk to you about this no matter what. I never heard from him again. I don't know what happened to him. Maybe he's not even alive. Good area for questions. So if you have more.
Milk bowing, so in an area like the Peace Corps or even the military, some big institution that's endeavoring to, in their words, maybe help people or do good. What is it in our institution here in the Sangha that we're trying to do, if we're not, yeah, how are we different, or how is this practice different from that?
We're not looking for results. And the rest of the world, materialistic, they're looking for right and wrong, success and failure, and results. Why would you meditate if it doesn't make you feel better? Why would you study? Why would you be here if all you feel like is worse while you're here? It's a spiritual path, not a mundane path. Much, much different. It takes, and this is not a compliment to anybody, it takes a very, very high form of understanding. You could call it intelligence of a sort, to really see that we need to see the truth ourselves, not somebody else's opinion or idea, no matter how convincing it is. Have to see it ourselves. This is what I learned from both of my teachers.
Thank you.
Yes, sir. Further questions? Yes, sir.
Chokodabang. It sounded like you described the circle of samsara and also called that sacred world.
Mhm.
What's the difference between those?
It's sacred when you see that it's a circle. And it's difficult, challenging, or you could say profane if you think it's a straight line. If it goes from here to there. Success to failure and back to success. If you see what it is, you don't do anything. It's already perfect. This is the ancient Dzogchen masters were telling this, what, 700-800 years ago? Great perfection If you see it, go ahead. You.
Sokuzan. So if you see. Basically, we're not going to go off the circle, even if we see what it is.
Run that by me again.
Are we? Getting off of or out of the circle if we see what it is.
I don't want to get too fancy here, but you don't, there isn't anyone anymore. There's just consciousness. So if anything shows up as other, it's a circle. It's just the moon, just the moon. You know about moons? Just the moon. The teaching, as has been traditionally said, is the finger pointing at the moon. And it may point at something you don't think is the moon. You think that's something else, or that's wrong, that shouldn't be happening. And maybe it's true. More.
Chuck it out behind me. If we see recurring patterns, that seems to be circular. Is there a quality on the path of seeing that thing come around again that we've seen many, many times? And maybe not having the control to engage or pull away from it, but there could be kind of like that pattern keeps happening, yet maybe we're not buying in or something like that.
So fundamentally, what do you want to know? I understood what you said, but I forgot most of it.
Me too.
So did you. What do you want to know? That's a good, it's real good to just bring it down to a point. Then I can respond directly, hopefully.
I want to know about the patterns that we see happen over and over in our lives.
Yes,
The repetitions, they seem to be the circle.
yes. Yes.
And do we? I'm wondering about seeing that clearly and if we continue to buy into that or we. What happened?
I can respond.
Okay.
If you see it clearly, you won't do anything because you know it's unreal. You won't care. You've heard me say this a few times. You won't care how you feel because there isn't anyone. There are the emotions and they're intense and they're looking for someone who is a motor, who feel, where did that emotion come from? The source of anything is can't be found. It's an illusion. That doesn't mean you might feel intense grief, intense passion, aggression, ignorance, however, whatever may show up. It's just that because you've seen the true nature of the world and of the so-called self, subjective, objective, you're no longer manipulated by anything. You're liberated. It doesn't mean that things aren't pulling on you, tugging on you, pushing on you in the form of ideas in your mind, philosophies, culture, rules, laws, ethics, all kinds of things can show up, and other people and their desires and their wishes, including your family. And they will use their credential. Well, I'm your son, or I'm your dad, and use that to try to manipulate you and control you. But you won't be concerned. This doesn't mean that if someone is saying something about you, that you won't interact with them in the illusion. You're no longer afraid of anything. You're not even afraid of someone hating you because your fundamental, the value received as a monk is to save all beings, and how that's going to show up may not feel particularly comfortable to that person who thinks they're an individual. You follow me a little bit? So your functioning is way larger than some little room in the Bronx where you're fighting with your spouse. There is no such thing. But if you're in that illusion, you function it as best you can to not harm anyone, but you also don't separate yourself from the karma that is a huge weight on you and on them that is coming from a, an area that there's no source for it. You cannot find. So that's why you don't care how you feel. There isn't anyone. It's an illusion. More?
Thank you.
Have some time? Go ahead.
Kandrima bowing.
Yes.
You before or earlier were saying that there's a lot of spaciousness, maha, that were then, I don't know, are we focusing down on or
Yes.
on one
just
piece
like-
of it?
Just like Shikantaza, you sit symmetrical and then you watch the asymmetry of the mind go this way, go that way, liking, disliking, irritated, gossiping things in the mind come up about people and about yourself and about what you said, what they said. And you just observe it. No longer taking or looking at what arises and leaving it for what you think about it. But if you do that, then you also look at that. So if you find yourself judging or disliking or even hating somebody or being irritated with somebody, just receive it. Just be the crap you're trying to get rid of. So you can eventually, not this week, next week, maybe not this year, maybe not for many years. Eventually you just realize that you are not your emotions or your feelings or your thoughts. You are consciousness only. You're just yes.
Kandrima bowing. So is all of that an illusion, including the spaciousness?
Yes.
As long as you are identifying with separateness or identifying with a solid sense of self, all of that is illusion.
Whatever shows up is an illusion. I don't mean to be dismissive of what you're asking me, but maybe I'm just not clear. Seem to be pretty circular.
Kandrima bowing. So if you saw what this is, saw that this is an illusion,
Yes.
saw that there wasn't a solid sense of self,
Yes.
would that spaciousness be consciousness?
To use that consciousness, the concept of consciousness and the concept of space. And yes, it's like that. It's a mind like the sky. Clouds come and go, but the sky doesn't do anything. It doesn't care. Though everything appears in the sky, including the things that are very obvious and visible, like clouds and lightning and hail. But there are things that appear in the sky that you cannot see. You know about those? That's because you can't see them.
Kandrima bowing. I guess my question is about the spaciousness. It's part of the illusion.
Yes.
Everything of the illusion arises in consciousness, so it's not separate from consciousness. It is consciousness, the illusion
Yes.
itself.
Yes. You can't find other. The teaching way before we got here is everything is empty of other. Anything you see is just that. It's empty of something else. And another way of saying it is that's the negative way of saying it. It's empty of other. The positive way of saying it is it's just consciousness. It may look like this, may look like that, or like this, or like this. The differentiation is extreme and it's everywhere, the 10,000 things, which is an understatement, of course. That's the illusion. Every thought you have is an illusion, every emotion, no matter how realistic it is, or how much you can prove that it's about doing this or doing that. It's cold out, it's sunny out, fire's hot, earth is hard.
Kandrima bowing. So looking at that spaciousness that things arise in.
All you can really do is watch what's arising. You can't see the space. Consciousness can't see itself. The sky can't see itself.
conjure bond, but if we're still not identifying with the space, we're still stuck on the illusion of separateness,
It's all right. Just be aware of it.
and that awareness is,
You don't have to identify with space. Identifying with space is a concept. And it will prevent you from actually seeing that you are space. Your actual identity is just an open dimension. Your identity is no particular characteristics or qualities at all. Though qualities and characteristics can show up in the space, and since your understanding has gone beyond that, you could say it that way, the relative way of saying gone beyond that, you're available for everything. More.
conjure bond, you say that the eye cannot see itself. If we still believe in the illusion, it's still stuck on a separateness. Is that still true, that since we are consciousness, we cannot see?
I'm not sure if I'm tracking you.
I'm getting too conceptual.
Oh, well, I don't mind that. Further questions? Natsumi, you have a question?
Natsumi bowing. It feels like when I was participating in the forum earlier, that there was a sense of almost like a pushing to the next thing. Like once I started the circle, it felt like it was going to keep going. And it also sometimes feels like that by nature of the group chanting during like morning service or something like that. What is the forward motion that shows up?
That is an illusion, which you probably knew that already. But it's just part of the illusion that things go this way and go that way. And if you have a form where part of the form is to actually make a circle, or part of the form is to come in, bow to the cushion, bow to the sangha, take your place on the cushion, sit in symmetrical. Those forms are just there. You can change them. Occasionally for a while I was doing, I don't have a gong here, but for a while I was doing a teaching where I would just move towards the gong and then stop. So it's called halfway measures. I was doing some of those, so I could do that. I could pick this up and begin to. So that's awareness. It's movement and it's not movement. I could, if I wanted to be cute about it, I could do something completely weird. I could start to paint my rocks too. I probably won't because I'd probably have to take it to the dry cleaner. You know what I mean? I'm not trying to be ridiculous. I'm just saying that you could go outside the form. Just knowing that you can do that will help you just stay in the form because you have the freedom to go any direction with it. Another one I used to do occasionally was just strike the gong and just miss the gong altogether, or throw the striker across the room, or throw it in the gong, just to break down the form. So you don't have to obey anything, but that doesn't mean that we should go around and try to be real crazy about it. Just like with this, if we had 3 or 4 people, if someone just did a square, well, they get laughed out of the room. But if they turn the square on the side, it's a diamond, and then it represents the Vajrayana, of course, and then it would be acceptable. You see what I'm saying? It's just silliness, but it's that kind of thing that the mind is looking for some kind of credential or some kind of way of slipping by and getting some kind of special treatment or something. I'm not sure I got close to what you were asking. I think I heard what you said, that you notice when something starts, it has a continuity that carries on, and you notice that the circle continues and that the sutra continues. Is that what you're asking about? Did I come anywhere near it?
Natsumi bowing. Yes, that's what I was asking about. But in listening to your response, I'm wondering about the need to leave a form or deviate from a form intentionally, um, when that like shows up because you don't want to obey, and want to do something else. Is that just ego? Valerie?
More than likely, we don't have to clamp down on it and say it's ego. It could be just having fun. It could be a lightness about the whole thing. The whole area of forms is so very powerful in terms of awareness practice. And as you hear this, each one of you will start to use this in a different way, maybe in a way that I've not mentioned at all, that no one has thought about working with forms. There's things you can do that have a formal structure to them, but are disconnected from any kind of, tradition or anything at all.
Natsumi bowing. I guess when we stray from a form, I believe you often speak of returning to practice and to return. It seems, is there any way to play with that or explore that, without completely leaving?
It sounds like you're probably already doing it. You're actually doing it mentally. You're looking at staying away or coming back, but you haven't really put it into gear, so to speak, and just stop meditating for a month or something. But that may come up, and I talk to people occasionally. I'll meet someone who has having difficulty with this, that, or the other thing as far as forms, and I might say, just take some time off. Don't sit for a while. What, really? I can stop sitting? I said, yes, you can just stop sitting. Don't sit for a month. But set it up as a form. Not that you couldn't do it just spontaneously quit, but if you're practicing and you want to do it with some kind of awareness about it, then stop sitting for 2 weeks or something and decide when you're going to come back. I also work with people who are working with addictions the same way. Do it with awareness, don't do it with control. But then you use the control, a little bit of control to shape the form so that you can get a more clear understanding of the way in which that form is working for you, whether it be addiction or whether it be working with passion, aggression, and ignorance in your mind stream, or with your whole idea of what is discipline. What does it mean to actually observe and practice a form? And I think that eventually comes up, I know it certainly has for me over a long period of time, of what discipline actually is for this, my way of understanding. How do I encourage myself to practice awareness practice and to use the common word that's often used. We sometimes use it on ourselves. And I used it on myself many times. I'm just lazy. I don't want to do anything. Just want to lay around and smoke weed or something. Not recently, but there was a day when that was more interesting than anything else I could be doing. But that changed. And I began to try to understand deeply what it was that was even to be here, sit in a room and talk to people, and what it was to be a person, and what it was to deal with all the stuff that goes on in our mind that is so wild and crazy, and do it with awareness rather than judgment or opinion or evaluation. This is what I learned from Trungpa. You could actually do it with awareness, not just conclusions. More? Not to me.
No, thank you.
Yeah. Jishin?
Jishin, what does it mean to see the true nature of things? Bowing.
Okay, what does it mean to see the true nature of things? So let's take, for instance, a thing like that camera, or like that light, or like a thought that arises in my mind, or emotion, or a word that Erlam has said. or something that you're saying. If you see what that is, you realize you're not separate from it, and you realize it's just consciousness. Though it still has the dynamic of being a particular shaped concept or idea or word, it doesn't change from being a shape or something in the illusion. You just realize that fundamentally, this like a big capital F there, fundamentally it's just consciousness. So therefore, any kind of drunkenness or sobriety that arises in that word, anything that arises, you aren't taken away by it. You don't use that to judge it or evaluate it or accept it or reject it. You just realize it's just another level of the illusion. So therefore, you can sometimes it's called just dancing with things. You're just there and you just dance. It moves this way, you move that way. It runs away, you shrug. Next time it moves away and you chase it. So you dance with it. You actually don't know what you're doing, but you are on receive all the time. So you can actually just be completely 110% genuine. You may not feel genuine, but you will be genuine. Yes. Go ahead.
Thank you. You said it never appeared because it never disappeared.
Yes.
What is that it, Bowing?
Consciousness. Consciousness doesn't appear. You can't disappear. The sky doesn't appear. The sky can't disappear. In other words, space. The sky is sometimes blue, but the blue can disappear. I've heard, I don't know if you all know, anybody been into space? These days you just about have to check because people have been everywhere, but there isn't anything out there. Is that your understanding of it? Anybody here think there's something in outer space besides just space? There's no sky. What do they call that? A vacuum? So how would you clean up space and get all the debris and all the junk and all of the detritus, the dead satellites and everything? I can tell you. Use a vacuum cleaner. Sorry. Actually, I'm not sorry. So anything you see is an illusion, and anything you see, if you see what it is fundamentally, relatively, you see that first you think it's real, and you push on it. First you think it's real and you don't like it. First you think it's real, and you run away. Or you magnetize and you want more of it. That's the illusion part. But if you begin to see what it is, you see that it's unreal, and then you kind of keep your distance and watch it. You don't chase it, it's an illusion. You don't run away, it's an illusion. That's part of the stages on the path of realization. And eventually, to use the time, the word that indicates some kind of a interval or time, which is also an illusion, because once you see it, you see you've always known it. There wasn't any gap between what you knew and what you used to know and what you know now. You see that it's just consciousness. And then the next stage after that, you don't see anything. Powerful. And not most of the world's not interested in that. And some people are interested in just the first level of it, seeing that it's an illusion. But you have to start somewhere. Is there a further question anywhere? Or we can close either way. Yes.
While bowing with the title Grasping Results, with a practice like this where we're throwing away the result each time, does it help to do anything with that area?
Just be aware of it. And especially like I was saying to Yunkai, who I think you were asking about that, and you wanted to keep one of them that I did.
Yeah,
So that's fine. And if you see one that you like, the idea here is it's a practice, but if you see one that you want to keep, you keep it. So there's no, the form is not about a right or wrong or should or shouldn't, though some people teach it that way. In In the Shambhala tradition, you don't ever keep a result of anything, but you set aside another time where you just take special paper that's very expensive, and you just do a very special calligraphy. But it makes it kind of difficult when the 14th one you did out of 30 was the one you wanted to keep, because it was so spontaneous. So what is that? Clinging to results, grasping results, not wrong. And it's so not wrong that you could actually grasp the results. You going along and you have the idea of, I'm just going to fold all these. I'm not folding this one. I'm keeping this one. You can actually do that if you realize fundamentally what it's just about awareness. No rules to follow. Don't have to follow any rules. And so therefore, coming back to Natsumi's question, if you really see what this is, you won't feel like you have to do something to break away from something or change or not be ordered around. You're already not ordered around. You're only ordered around if you're operating out of some kind of fear that you're not aware of. And so therefore you have to work with that to try to make sure you're still in control, that you're not going to follow that form. You understand a little bit? You don't have to do anything. You're already liberated. Everyone here is already not separate from the Buddha, the awakened one. You are consciousness only. Thank you so much. I'm going to need some help getting up from here by a couple of you very strong women. 1, 2, 3. You go this way. Okay. And this way. I think I got it. Thank you.
This is we every sentient being together can realize the Buddha's way. Shi Ho San Shi Shi Fu Shi Song Lu Sa Mo Ko Sa Mo Ko Ho Ja Ho Ro Mi. The 10 directions, the 3 times, all Buddhas, all venerable ones, Bodhisattvas, Mahasattvas, the great Prajna, Paramita,